ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 2017 City of San Antonio mayoral debate. My name is C. Leroy Cavazos Reina. I am the Vice President of Government Affairs for the San Antonio Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, America's first Hispanic business organization founded in 1929 here in the heart of our city by Mexican immigrants. Our President and CEO, Ramiro Cavazos, sends his regrets. He is currently contagious with strep throat, so we could not have him here today shaking hands. It would just not be appropriate for the rest of us in the room. Ramiro sends his love. So does Dr. Esteban Lopez, our 2017 chairman of the board, who is traveling and wishes everyone tonight a good time here at this debate, and also the candidates good luck. We would like to take this opportunity to thank our partners, the KSAT 12 team, and thank our partners at the Bexar County Medical Society for bringing you this 2017 mayoral debate so that we can learn what the future of San Antonio holds in these candidates that are running to lead what is now the 7th largest city in the United States of America and a pivotal partner on the U.S.-Mexico border when it comes to trade and commerce with our neighbors to the south. So ladies and gentlemen, sit back, relax, enjoy this debate, take some notes, and learn about what's going on in our city and the decision that our citizens have to make, because it is our social responsibility to go to the ballot box and cast our vote for the next leader of the city of San Antonio. At this time, it is my humble honor and privilege to introduce to you a journalist who has been a person that has enacted social, political, and economic change in the San Antonio community. Steve Spriester with KSAT 12 News will be tonight's moderator. He originally went to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and Steve has had great impact in our community. He has been at KSAT 12 since 1995 and has really changed the realm of how news gets reported at their 5, 6, and 10 o'clock segments. One of the greatest things that Steve has done for the San Antonio community is that Steve was the cause for political leaders in this community to establish services for the homeless population in San Antonio. And he is the principal behind why Haven for Hope exists here in San Antonio. And that is a big deal because journalists, us as journalists, have a responsibility to report things that will create social and political change. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I give you our partners and tonight's moderator for this 2017 City of San Antonio mayoral debate, Steve Spriester.
Thank you. Thank you, Leroy. First off, I want to say thank you all for being here, and thank you for being part of this process and part of this mayoral debate. I want to thank the San Antonio Hispanic Chamber. I want to thank the Bexar County Medical Society for being partners with KSAT 12 in all of this. I also want to say if I ever run for political office, Leroy Cavazos is going to be my chairman, in case anybody wanted to know. I also want to thank you beforehand for being respectful during this process. We are basically going to try to get to what the differences in these three candidates are today and have a substantive conversation. We do have some time limits that we're going to put on them. 2 minutes for opening statements, 2 minutes for the first question, a minute or so for the rebuttals. But if the conversation goes deeper than that, I, as moderator, am going to let the conversation continue. If I think we're a little off track, I'll take care of that too. I've also told the candidates that if they want to say something, if they feel like they need to say something, just say, Steve, I got to answer that one. Okay? So I also want to say hello to everybody that is watching this on our live stream on KSAT.com. There is a way that you can ask questions. We have already been getting questions in as well, and we plan on taking some of those as well. So right now, why we can, because I don't want clapping or booing or shushing or anything during the debate itself. How about a round of applause? Just let everybody at home know who is here. So The way this process worked is we basically drew numbers to find out not only who got to go first, second, and third when it comes to the first question and opening and closing statements, but also who sat where on the stage that you see behind us. So right now, let me introduce the candidates in the order of the drawing that we had earlier. First of all, the Bexar County Democratic Chairman, Mr. Manuel Medina. Good to see you, buddy. Second, Mayor Ivy Taylor. It's good to see you. And finally, City Councilman Ron Nuremberg. You were making me nervous there for a while. Thought we were having a Ben Carson moment. I just wanted to make sure that that didn't happen. Like I said, we drew to see who would go first, second, or third in the order. Chairman Medina,
yes,
you drew first, so you get the opening remarks.
Thank you. My name is Manuel Medina. I'm a successful businessman, dedicated family man, and a man of faith. I was born on the south side, maybe a little further south than most of you, in a little place called Mexico. Now, at the age of 3, my mom and I crossed the border, maybe swam a little, into McAllen, and came here to San Antonio. We moved to El Paso, and then to Los Angeles. I grew up as a DREAM Act student, but I also grew up as an American, pledging allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and singing the Star-Spangled Banner. I grew up as an American. And like many of our immigrant families, I saw how our parents took care of the kids, cooked the food, mowed the lawn. But it's their kids, today's generation of architects, engineers, and doctors. And why not? Next mayor. But you try San Antonio Spurs fan in Los Angeles. I graduated from the Southern California with a degree in electrical engineering. Then I Texas in Austin, and graduated with a master's degree in electrical engineering. Then I returned to San Antonio, and I got to work. I've managed, over the last 20 years, 3 successful businesses. The first, a call center technology and infrastructure company that began with 5 employees and blossomed to 500 employees. I've managed a political consulting company with clients across the state, throughout the nation, and even internationally. Of late, I run a real estate business, mainly managing my own properties, but truth be told, my wife does most of the work, but I'll take most of the credit. I've known my wife, Jeanette, for over 20 years. We live with our daughters, Michelle Marie and Sara Sofia, on the north side in the Dominion. I pray every night, and I believe that the Virgen de Guadalupe, the patron saint of the Americas, is guiding over me, my family, and our campaign. I look forward to tonight's debate and to share with you my vision for San Antonio that begins today.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chairman Medina. Next, Mayor Taylor.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you, and it certainly has been the privilege and honor of my life to serve as your mayor for the last 2.5 years. I'm here asking for your support to allow me to continue providing that leadership in the mayor's role. You'll find that I've come to you well prepared for the job with the education and experience that I have. I'm an urban planner, educated at Yale and University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I came here in the summer of 1997 for a summer job and met the love of my life, my husband Rodney. We're raising our 13-year-old daughter, and it certainly is my goal to ensure that San Antonio is a city that she will want to raise her family in. I've provided effective leadership during my time as your mayor, tackling big challenges such as securing our water supply, breaking through the stalemate with the police union to be able to attain a contract that's fair for both the officers as well as our taxpayers, passing a comprehensive plan called SA Tomorrow to help us address the growth challenges and pressures that we experience as a community. It certainly is an amazing time in San Antonio. There are so many wonderful things going on and there's so much growth. And so I want to be able to continue to provide that leadership and help us tackle tough issues like transportation and workforce development. And so therefore I ask for your support so we can continue this wonderful journey together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Taylor. Next, Councilman Ron Nirenberg.
Good evening. I'm Ron Nirenberg. Most importantly, I am the proud father of my son Jonah and proud husband of Erica. For the last 4 years, I have been a city councilman in District 8, which is one of the fastest growing regions of our entire city. It's also the place where the diversity most closely matches the city as a whole. And I have enjoyed every moment that we've been working on the challenges that San Antonio faces now and in the future. And as I've worked over the last 4 years, particularly over the last 2 years, I've talked with many people all over our community, people who love the city as much as I do. And they're concerned that we've lost our momentum. They're saying that we're doing just okay. Well, I think doing just okay is not good enough. Not failing is not the same as succeeding. And you deserve a city that succeeds. You deserve a city that is fiscally responsible with your tax dollars, a city that has a booming economy that is creating jobs that benefit all San Antonians. You deserve a city that you feel safe from the fear of violent crime in your streets and in your neighborhoods and your malls and all public places. You deserve a city where when you go out on the roads, you aren't stuck in traffic and gridlock as you are today. You deserve a city whose leaders are held to the highest ethical standards and who will face real consequences when they violate those standards. And you deserve a city that is actively planning for tomorrow as we take care of the 1.5 million people that we have here today. That's my vision for San Antonio, to create a city that you can be proud of no matter where you live, no matter who you are. That's the same city that Eric and I chose when we were looking to build a life together. And that's the city I know that we can build when we work together today. And that's my vision for San Antonio. It's not based on partisan politics. It's not based on wedge issues or bombastic rhetoric. It's based on the local issues that we can work together to solve, just like we've been working on as a city together for so many decades to build a city that you can be proud of and a city that you deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Nirenberg. All right, no more applause now. Opening statements is good, but let's get to the substantive questions and answers. And Chairman Medina, you're the one that gets to start with the first question. You've all talked about your vision. I think in a lot of your slogans, you talk about things that you would like to see. But how does your vision for the future of San Antonio differ from the two opponents who are on the stage here? And be specific, if you would.
Thank you. As mayor, I will focus on today. There's a legitimate concern in the community that this council is too focused on tomorrow. They keep talking about the 1 million people coming to San Antonio over the next 25 years. Their jobs, their safety, their infrastructure. Well, how about the 1.5 million that already live here today? Our jobs, our safety, our infrastructure. How about doing something about problems that have plagued our community far too long? Generational poverty on the west side, institutional violence on the east side, nightmare traffic on the north side, and the lack of basic infrastructure on the south side. No one expects a mayor to change these things overnight, but they do want a mayor that's focused on today, addressing the issues that you and I face today.
Mayor Taylor, same question for you. How do you see the future, and how does it differ from the two opponents that you have on the stage here?
Well, I love talking about my vision for our community, that we're a globally competitive city where every person is connected to opportunities for prosperity, no matter what side of town they live in or what their background may be. And I believe that we are on the path to bringing that vision to reality. I don't know, I believe that my opponents share the ideas that we want everyone to be connected to prosperity throughout our city. I believe that the difference is more in execution. I believe I've been able to demonstrate strong leadership and the ability to collaborate and work with people across the city in order to find consensus points in order to bring that vision to reality.
Councilman Nirenberg.
Well, I believe in a vision that the San Antonio community came together 6 years ago to create a document that we could believe in, and a vision for San Antonio to be a safe and well-functioning city for all of us to share. That was the guiding principle for SA Tomorrow, which is the comprehensive plan, which I appreciate the fact that the mayor appreciates my leadership on that so much that she's willing to co-opt it as her own. But the point of this is leadership is the key to executing a vision. And when we are talking about issues of diversity and inclusion, the mayor calls those distractions. When we're talking about executing on a water security plan that we can believe in that actually delivers water, the mayor calls that a soundbite. We need to make sure that we are working together to implement the vision that we created through SA Tomorrow and through the SA 2020 process, and that is the difference. We cannot shy away from the difficult issues, the difficult conversations, whether it's in housing, whether it's in public safety, whether it's in water security. That's the difference between a city that succeeds and a city that is okay with being just okay.
Mayor Taylor, I want to let you answer some of those things that Councilman Nirenberg was talking about.
Well, I take very seriously my responsibility to be a strong team leader for our city council, and we were on the same team working towards the adoption of the SA Tomorrow plan, though I will point out that I am a trained urban planner, and it's been a goal of mine ever since going back to my time as a city employee, where I saw that we did not have a strategic plan to guide the decisions that we were making. So it was very important to me, and I had even talked with the previous administration about our need for a plan. So the mayor appoints people to chair committees, and so I appointed Councilman Nirenberg to chair a committee that other council members were on in order to shepherd and guide the adoption of the plan, and I'm very proud that we got to that finish line.
Chairman Medina, anything you would like to add to this conversation?
Well, I'll just point out that they keep talking about tomorrow. While we have the most economically segregated city in America, where income inequality here in town is at historic levels, and we're at a boiling point when it comes to 20% poverty rates. We have an issue today. I wish they would focus on today a little bit more.
Thank you. Next question is for Mayor Taylor. When it comes to San Antonio business, our relationship to Mexico obviously is very important. How, with talk from Washington of border walls and deportations and bad hombres, do you let Mexico's government know San Antonio is still open for business?
Well, this certainly is a critical issue for us. San Antonio has so many ties to Mexico, both economic and cultural, and so I'm committed to working with everyone in our congressional delegation and folks at the state and folks here in the community, both to work with folks in Mexico to continue to communicate and share the importance of that, and also convey to the current administration that we have those very important ties, and we don't want to see any legislation that would jeopardize that. I was excited to see in the paper today editorial from our new Secretary of State regarding that, and so I am certainly on the team that will continue to convey that very strongly to our federal government, but also continue reaching out to folks in Mexico so that they know that we honor those relationships and that history.
Councilman Nirenberg.
Some comfort that we can take in some of the posturing that we've seen at the state and local level is that a lot of this changes from administration to administration. But one thing that San Antonio has done so very well, and the business community has done so very well, in organizations like Sister Cities International, which I am the 2018 chair of, have done so well, is it rises above politics. We know that a vast majority of the growth in GDP here in San Antonio that benefits local families and local businesses comes from foreign direct investment, comes from export-import activity, particularly with our partners in Mexico. We've created strategic partnerships in areas in South America, in China, in India, in Japan, and we need to continue to leverage those no matter what the politics in DC and Austin are. And that's what our leaders in San Antonio need to be so very focused and loud about, because we can help shape federal policy and state policy that is isolationist and is damaging to our economies when we speak up about the fact that we're creating jobs, we're creating benefits to families, we're creating partnerships across countries when we are working through the private sector and through private citizens to create those connections. And I think that the next mayor will absolutely need to be at every table, here and abroad, to find opportunity for our local businesses and for our local families in the international arena.
Chairman Medina.
Thank you. Just this week, I was in Mexico. I went down to Torreon, Mexico to talk with the automotive group down there that's a big supplier here to Toyota. And I shared with them my thoughts and shared with them that they have a friend in San Antonio. We talked about NAFTA and how, yes, it'll affect them, but also just this talk of reforming NAFTA is having investors hold on whether they put their money in the United States or not. I told them we share a concern on that. I talked to them about the rhetoric coming from Washington, and I understand that when the president talks the way he's been talking, it has a devaluation on the peso, and that means less tourism and less tax revenue for the city of San Antonio. I shared with them that we're completely against this idea of a 20% tariff on Mexican imports, that at the end of the day will be a tariff, a tax on consumers here in San Antonio. We have a number of issues, including the wall. I told them that we're going to fight to try to redirect the president from the wall and spending $25 billion on that, which Republicans themselves have said is not going to work, makes no sense, costs too much money. Instead of investing $25 billion on a wall, let's invest it on infrastructure projects. Let's invest it in Loop 410 and 1604 to expand our highways and alleviate traffic. Let's put it to work on I-35 and I-37 to create jobs. Let's invest in infrastructure on 281 and 90 here in San Antonio. Let's not waste our money. So that's what my message was when I traveled to Torreon this week. I think it was well received, and I told them, when I'm elected on May 6th, I'll be back. Your friend in San Antonio will be back, and together we're going to increase we're going to contribute to strengthen our relationship that's been here for 300 years.
Thank you, Chairman. All right, let's. I know, it's okay. It's all right. The next question kind of dovetails onto that question, and Councilman Nirenberg, you get this one. If you become mayor, do you see your role as standing up for San Antonio on the national stage against things you don't believe are good for the city? Do you see that as something that you should do as a mayor of San Antonio?
Absolutely, and it's something that I am proud to have been doing as a city council member. We have important associations, whether it's our National League of Cities, whether it's our presence through delegation trips here and abroad, whether it's SA to DC trip, whether it's the organizations that we work through, our chamber community, our nonprofit community, our associations that support any number of activities in San Antonio. It is our role as a mayor of San Antonio to stand up for the priorities of our city. So on issues of business, we will be there. On issues of social equity, we will be there. On issues that affect families in San Antonio, we absolutely have to stand up as a city, and that comes from the mayor's office. And that is the kind of leadership that I think is lacking right now, is a vocal champion for the city of San Antonio. And I'll just close with the business community, because this is, appreciate very much the sponsorship of this particular event to get people more involved in the leadership of our city. We need to make sure that the city of San Antonio, the 7th largest city in the United States and one of the largest economies in the state of Texas in the world, we need to make sure that the mayor of San Antonio, their #1 job is to be at the table of opportunity no matter where that can be found. If it's here, if it's in Austin, it's in DC, if it's in Japan or anywhere else in the world, that needs to be the focus to make San Antonio a better place for all families.
Chairman Medina.
Thank you. Last year we had a presidential candidate insulting every single one of us. Whether you were female, whether you were African American, whether you were Hispanic, whether you were disabled, whether you were a veteran. He was out there insulting every single one of us, and the mayor and the councilman said nothing. As mayor, Manuel Medina will stand up for San Antonio, and we will begin by finding common ground with the President of the United States. I believe San Antonio is there. If the President wants to create jobs, we will be there. If the President is ready to invest in infrastructure projects in San Antonio, we will be there. When he talks about protecting the American worker, we will be with him. At the same time, we're going to ask respect. Respect for our local ordinances that protect our natural resources at Edwards Aquifer. Respect for our community policing policies that say no to racial profiling, no to stop and frisk, no to show me your paper legislation. Respect for our fight for $15 an hour here in San Antonio. A few weeks ago, people from across the country marched. In San Antonio, we marched too. And we will continue to march until the voice of common sense and reason and common ground is heard. That's the kind of mayor you'll have with Manuel Medina.
Thank you, Chairman. Mayor Taylor?
Of course, I believe that it's an important part of my job as mayor of San Antonio to stand up for our city and our citizens and to ensure that I communicate with folks who may be considering legislation or other actions that would negatively impact our community. And that is what I have been doing. So I would certainly differ with the characterization that's been offered. But I also have to say that I don't believe standing up just means making loud statements and posting stuff on social media. Standing up also means that you have to be willing to form relationships with people that are in decision-making positions that can have an impact on our community. And that's what I've been working towards throughout my time as mayor, and it has yielded fruitful results for our community.
Chairman Medina, you have the next question, and it's more of a follow-up to that question. And it has to do specifically with some of the things that we have seen the legislature take up in Austin. First, the bathroom bill, so-called bathroom bill. There was a person with Visit San Antonio today who says it has already cost San Antonio some prospective convention visitors. Some groups have already knocked San Antonio off the list because of what is happening in the legislature. Would you stand up in opposition to that bill? And how would you make a difference in Austin from San Antonio?
Well, let me tell you, fortunately, Speaker Strauss has already done our job. He has united Democrats and Republicans to kill that bill. Republicans are against it mostly on economic grounds. Democrats are mostly against it on moral grounds. I believe all 10 state representatives from the city of San Antonio and Bexar County are against it, and it will die because of Representative Strauss's leadership. I haven't seen all the details, and I don't have all the information. What I do know is that Manuel Medina is pro-equality, and Manuel Medina is anti-discrimination.
Mayor Taylor, I don't know if you saw some of the comments that were actually from Ashley Harris, the Director of Industry and Government Relations from Visit San Antonio. And she said, quote, San Antonio has actually been contacted by some of our meeting and convention partners to let us know that they're very concerned about the bathroom bill and its impact on their ability to bring their event to our city. When you hear something like that, what action do you take, or have you already taken action?
Oh, well, of course, we're already taking action, though it was disturbing to know that some people may be prematurely making decisions on where to locate their conventions just based on the fact that this debate is ongoing. However, I've made it clear that my position is that this bill would negatively impact our community. And so we've been working with our intergovernmental staff at the city to closely monitor it, been working with Chairman Strauss, as well as the Speaker Strauss, excuse me, as well as the other members of our Bexar County delegation in order to determine, how we can most effectively convey the negative impact that it would have. It's also important that the business community is engaged, and I've talked with folks from chambers of commerce about how they can also convey that message, because we don't want it to just be coming from the city. Our state legislators need to hear from the business community that they're concerned about the negative impact. And so I've been in communication with a wide variety of parties in order to ensure that that message, that there's a unified message there that is conveyed in Austin.
I know that, a follow-up question for you. I know that the police chief has written a letter, I believe, to the legislature. I know that Councilwoman Villagran, I believe, is going up next week to also testify. Do you have plans to travel to Austin and reach out in that way to the powers that be there?
Well, I was in Austin a couple of weeks ago. Actually, I should have also mentioned the other way that I've been working together is with the other big city mayors. We had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and we had a press conference afterward and have released a statement that it would negatively impact all of our cities. So at this time, I'm not sure if I'll be testifying at a committee on that specific issue, but I am continue to remain engaged in ensuring that the message is strongly communicated.
Councilman?
Well, it certainly is a commentary on what the state considers to be an emergency, because this is an emergency bill on the Lieutenant Governor's list, I believe. Certainly, I stand with San Antonio, its business community, its people in issues of non-discrimination, and we will continue to speak out about this bill. But it is also a commentary on how politics is being played. Many of the positions, including from the mayor's office today, are not being made clear until the business community comes out and tells us that it's an economic issue. The truth of the matter is, it is an economic issue, but it's also a diversity and human issue. We need to make sure we stand up for non-discrimination as well as negative effects on our economy. And so we need to take leadership on this. I think that I do applaud the business community. I applaud the leadership here at the city level for taking a strong stand against a bill which would have negative impacts all the way around.
When it comes to sanctuary cities and some of that debate that's being played out in Austin, Mayor Taylor, how do you view that debate? And you know, it seems that the sheriff talking just this week about him not necessarily in favor of keeping ICE detainers, but that he's basically, state funds would be withheld if he didn't.
Well, it is so critical for our law enforcement officials here at the local level to be able to put all their energy, focus, attention, and resources into keeping our community safe. And we've heard loud and clear from our police chief and other law enforcement officials that they want to focus on just that and not serving as de facto immigration officials. We also want to ensure that every single person who lives in our community, regardless of their status, immigration status, feels comfortable and feels confident in interacting with law enforcement so that they can report crime, whether they've been a victim of it or a witness to it. So for those reasons, I believe that we should defer to the advice of our law enforcement officials. I believe that the responsibility related to immigration lies with the federal government.
Councilman?
Well, I mean, I believe in a safe border too, but I think that's right. Their job is federal immigration. Our job is to make sure that we reverse the trend on what is now a 25-year high in our violent crime rate. We need all the manpower, resources, and time that we can to address that issue, and they can work on federal immigration. And that should be the position of San Antonio. It is the position of our police chief. And frankly, I listen to our police chief on issues of policing strategy and what will make our city safer than before I would a politician in Austin.
Chairman Medina.
Yes. I believe we need to protect good people and deport bad people. I understand that 99.9% of immigrants are good people. We need to protect them. They're out there raising families, contributing to society, raising the next generation of Americans. We also need to deport that 0.001% that are bad people. Deport them. We all agree. Last year, we worked on formalizing the city's informal policy. We formalized that police officers in the city of San Antonio will not be immigration officers. They will not be participating in raids. They will not be asking people for their papers. And they will not be deporting people just because they look like someone that should be deportable. Police officers are not immigration officers here in the city of San Antonio. But we also need to have a relationship with ICE on how we deport these bad people, these 0.001 that need to be deported. We all agree. And it should be a policy that's based on our Christian values, not imposed on us by bureaucrats in Washington. It should be one where we protect good people and deport bad people. Because there is an economic reality. How many more police officers are we going to go need for all those calls that say, come pick up this illegal next door? We already have a shortage of 250 officers here in San Antonio to keep us safe. Just imagine the cost it would be to add more officers to just do that. And then the cost of keeping people in jail that don't belong in jail, simply because they sped 5 miles over the speeding limit, had a broken tail light, or jaywalked at some place. It makes no economic sense. It's not in our Christian values, and we need to stand up and fight for good people. And at the same time, we all agree, deport bad people.
I want to ask you just quickly to clarify on both of these things we just talked about, the Sanctuary Cities bill and the bathroom bill. Yes or no? I'll start with you, Chairman Medina. Are you in support of the Sanctuary Cities bill in Austin as it stands right now?
The Sanctuary City bill, no, specifically.
Yes.
But why? It's a very slippery slope when you start threatening cities with things that you don't agree with them on. So they're talking about taking our money away. Well, tomorrow they might disagree with us on something else. They'll threaten us there too. It's a slippery slope, and a number of reasons. That's just one of the reasons why I'm against it.
Okay. Mayor Taylor, Sanctuary Cities bill, are you in favor of the way it stands now?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Nuremberg, Sanctuary Cities bill.
No, and that should also be noted as the position of our police chief and police chiefs all around this country.
The bathroom bill, Chairman Medina.
No.
No.
Mayor Taylor?
No.
Councilman Nuremberg?
No.
Thank you. I have a Facebook question that we received on our Facebook, KSAT Facebook page. It's from Jessica Smith. She says, lately you can't see the news in San Antonio without reading about alleged unethical behavior occurring at City Hall, from the barge contract to bond appointments to city staff subverting the ethics process. In your opinion, how good of a job is the Ethics Review Board doing right now, and what could be done to restore the public's trust in the city when it comes to ethical behavior? Mayor Taylor, I believe you have this question.
Okay, sure. Well, of course, it's very important that our citizens have confidence in the folks that they've elected to serve, and I appreciate those who have put in time with the Ethics Review Board. I certainly believe that we are due for a conversation on how we could potentially refine what they do. My impression right now is that it's more focused on when something goes wrong, what the repercussions are, but I believe there are opportunities for them to provide, for that board to also provide guidance and clarity to ensure that things go smoothly. So, you know, I also believe that we have to elect people that we know have the highest ethical standards and are honest and will do the right thing, and certainly that has been my approach during my term as mayor. Everyone's going to have different interpretations of some of the things that are going on behind the scenes at City Hall, but I certainly have tried to provide transparency and always ensure that I am living by the values that guide me, and those values certainly would certainly focus on honesty and focusing on what's in the best interests of the public in every single case.
Councilman Nuremberg.
Well, I think it's extremely important. Citizens need to have confidence in their elected leaders, and citizens need to have confidence in the process that oversees their elected officials. And frankly, I mean, we have to be clear. We're not having this conversation. We wouldn't be having this conversation if there wasn't the excusal that happened last year of our mayor excusing herself from the very ethics rules that guide our behavior. And that's a problem. And so I do believe that it has exposed some weaknesses within our ethics code. I believe that our ethics review board, for instance, needs to be totally independent of the city staff and the city council. I believe that that ethics review board needs to have sanction authority. Not because I think that, you know, things are suddenly going to be going downhill, but because we want to make sure that the body that oversees your elected officials, your public officials, has the ability to hold them accountable. We need a top-down review of this, and not just a conversation about it, but addressing the loopholes, addressing the weaknesses that have already been brought forward because of the situations that have occurred over the last 2 years. And you mentioned, Steve, you mentioned the barge contract, and this is an important one for this reason alone. When a public official or an elected official gets to the end of the road on a contracting process, which has been deemed fair and ethical by every standard, even by our city attorney, and there is no substantive reason or evidence brought forward to end that process, what signal does it send to anyone who wants to do business with the city of San Antonio that you will be engaging a fair and transparent process? That is a chilling effect for every business around this country, and we need to make sure it doesn't happen again.
All right, Chairman Medina, I'm going to let you answer the question, and then Mayor Taylor, I will let you answer what Mr. Nirenberg just said there. When it comes to the Ethics Review Board, is it doing enough? Are you satisfied with the ethics review and the panel and the way things stand now?
Certainly not. And they've cultivated a pay-to-play culture at City Hall that's best described as candidates get their contributions, special interests get their special favors, and taxpayers get stuck with the bill. Therefore, Manuel Medina has a 7-point plan on how we're going to address ethics here in the city of San Antonio. First, we're going to have campaign spending limits so that our candidates are not beholden to special interests and their money. Second, we're going to have an ethics czar elected by the public. 3, we're going to have an ethics review board that has the authority to file public corruption charges. 4, we're going to address the issue of conflict of interest when it comes to our board appointments, our committee appointments, because we saw a lot of issues with people on the committees related to this year's bond. Additionally, I plan to do something about the revolving door at City Hall. People work at the city in important positions, then they go out and work in the private sector, then they come back, then they go back, therefore creating this culture of corruption. I will also reform our procurement process and our ethics laws, and any violation to those will result in a lifetime ban for lobbyists and the companies that are related to those violations, and then to end with it, we'll review it every 2 years because they always seem to find loopholes.
Thank you, Chairman. Mayor Taylor, Councilman Nirenberg, for lack of a better word, seemed to lay a lot of this at your feet.
Sure.
How do you answer those charges?
Well, I will confidently state to you, Steve, and everyone that is watching, that I have always acted in an ethical manner. And it's unfortunate that my council colleague has used some of these incidents to try and create a political narrative toward his benefit. However, I certainly reject the notion that there were no concerns related to the barge contract. There was a very clear concern that compelled me to take action. It certainly would have been convenient not to take action, but I was compelled to do the right thing and take action, ensure that everyone who is applying to do business with the city knows that they will be treated fairly. As to the matter of the other concern, time will not allow me to go in depth on the issue, but I will say that the actions that I took are what was requested of me by a community partner in order to ensure that we could continue to conduct the business of the housing authority that impacts the lives of thousands of San Antonians who are in need of safe, stable, decent, affordable housing, and that's why I took those actions.
Ron, did you?
Well, with all due respect, the process at Saha would have continued. And with regard to the barge contract itself, it is a very serious claim to make statements about ethics or failure in ethics or the transparency of a city process and not provide any details or proof of that while doing so. And we may have to wait and see, but I do not see how a 30-day reset is going to change the outcome of this. And so, you know, with all due respect, Mayor, we cannot just accept that answer, that nothing happened and we just need to move on.
I never said nothing happened. I said something happened that required us to go back and redo the process. And I am not trying to dictate an outcome. That's the point you're missing. I'm not trying to dictate an outcome. I'm trying to ensure the integrity of the process.
Let's move on to the next question.
Yes, let's.
Talk about transportation. A lot of people will say San Antonio has to have more transportation options. So what do those options look like to each of you, and how would they be sustainable? And does the idea of light rail make a comeback? Councilman Nirenberg.
Well, transportation is a serious issue for San Antonio. It is one of the ways that we show that we need to plan for the future if we're going to ensure success today and also keep us out of gridlock. I think first and foremost, we need to prioritize the most congested corridors that we have in our community, and we know where those are. We also have to work on improving our public transit system. VIA, for all practical purposes today, is operating on less funding than any other major city in the state of Texas. We need to improve that. And then finally, we also need to put forward, we need to have the leadership to implement a comprehensive multimodal transportation plan that is voter approved. We know that if we do business as usual here in San Antonio on transportation, we will be sitting in traffic that is twice as long within the next 25 years, and that some of the areas in San Antonio that are the most serious bottlenecks will be up 900% in terms of your wait times. 150 cars are added to San Antonio roadways every single day. And so business as usual is not good enough. We have to, again, tackle the long game of a comprehensive transportation system that voters can approve.
Does light rail, is that part of that?
I believe it is, and I'm a fan of that method if it is voter approved, and that's the kind of feedback that we've been getting, that we got through our comprehensive transportation plan through SA Tomorrow. Citizens want to vote on a better transportation future, and I think we need to have leadership provide them that option.
Chairman Medina.
Thank you. I believe campaigns are about ideas. And talking about generalities, well, Manuel Medina will always give you specifics. I want to be the transportation mayor. The first thing that I'll do, I'll identify the top 50 corridors in the city and improve drive times by 10% to get you out of your car, into your home, with your family sooner rather than later. Secondly, I will pass the Ray Saldana resolution to increase funding to VIA by $10 million so we can increase ridership, thereby expanding routes and increasing frequency. We will also give incentives to businesses so more of their employees can work from home and less people will be on the road. We'll also talk to them about staggering the time that their employees go in, the time their employees go out, so we can avoid peak hour traffic. Additionally, I will work with our federal and state legislatures to bring down the transportation money. We will continue to expand our roads. We still can, but that means no to toll roads. That means no to HOV lanes. And fifth, yes, Manuel Medina will build the San Antonio to Austin rail project.
How about light rail within San Antonio?
Well, certainly we're going to first tackle San Antonio to Austin, and we're going to show people how that works. People need to gain confidence that it's something that we need to head towards. Right now, they don't have it. In San Antonio, we voted twice against it. Just last year, we had the streetcar, and, well, I need to congratulate my friends at the Tea Party for stopping it, because what it was corruption in San Antonio. They stood up, fought back, and killed it. Manuel Medina will start with San Antonio to Austin, and if that works, we'll take a look at the next step.
Mayor Taylor.
There's certainly not just one solution that we need. We need a variety of options. So continuing to work with those who are seeking funding through the MPO, and it'll be interesting to see what happens at the federal level, if there really will be dollars available for infrastructure, which can assist us with transportation. Yes, we need to be able to expand roads, but we know that we can't build our way out of the congestion problems that we have just through road expansion. So we've got to have other modes of transportation. We're building sidewalks through the bond program, should the voters approve it. I believe the SA Tomorrow strategy is going to be very important, as it provides for a number of what we call regional centers, which will be live, work, play areas spread throughout the city, where hopefully people can accomplish their daily activities and meet their daily needs in a more compact area, so they don't have to spend as much time on the roads. And we also need to have that regional approach related to transportation, because we have so much back and forth between here and Austin. I do believe that the majority of San Antonians would see rail between San Antonio and Austin as a real transportation solution. And so for that reason, that would be my priority. In fact, I've already had some meetings with Amtrak to discuss the possibility of them increasing their service to Austin, but would like to leave no stone unturned in relation to our efforts to provide some options along that I-35 corridor.
Chairman Medina, you brought up the Austin-San Antonio corridor first. There are already plans for high-speed rail between Dallas and Houston. There's been some talk about it possibly happening, Dallas to Austin. Are you concerned that San Antonio could be left out of a possible high-speed rail triangle across the state?
I'm concerned of that, and I'm concerned that we're not going to get our research money, our transportation money, our public health money, public school money, because who decided to have city elections in the middle of session? All the other cities, major cities, put their elections at a later date. So that right now, they're in Austin, they're mayors, they're city council members, they're in Austin trying to bring down to their cities the money and get the resources to this Texas Triangle. Here, we're in the middle of election. I don't know who decided that, but we need to change that.
Thank you. Mayor Taylor.
I'm sorry, what would you like me to respond to?
You can respond to whatever you would like to respond to, but what I wanted to specifically talk about is high-speed rail and the fact that it seems to be on track between Dallas and Houston. I'm not hearing a lot of talk about high-speed rail necessarily coming to San Antonio.
Well, we definitely don't want to be left out of any opportunities, so I think there have been some conversations to explore, to learn more about the plan and see if it's a possibility for San Antonio to be part of that as well. I've spent more time focusing again on this San Antonio to Austin solution, but I guess if I could just comment on the way we have our governmental system set up here, as someone who's has some experience with it. The voters of San Antonio made that decision when they adopted our city's charter.
To have a May election.
Yes, which we have updated the charter a few times over the years, but the benefit of the system that we have, which is a nonpartisan city council, is that it allows us to focus on our San Antonio issues. What makes sense for San Antonians? What are the issues that we're grappling with as a community, instead of looking at things within the context of what's happening in Washington, D.C. We want to be able to make the best decisions for our community right now, not necessarily through the lens of just what's happening in Washington or throughout the nation.
Councilman?
Elections or rail?
Both.
Okay. Absolutely, I do believe that San Antonio needs to be a part of the Texas Triangle conversation. At the MPO level, we are having that conversation. In fact, there's already some very real proposals for high-speed rail between Oklahoma City and even into Monterey. We do need to make sure that the governor's office and the state capitol know that rail transit in the Central Texas corridor is an important priority for the whole state of Texas, because we know that the Texas miracle is happening on this corridor. We are creating jobs through many different sectors, and that's an important transportation priority to keep this area moving. With regard to elections, I think that it is never a bad thing to make sure that more people are involved in the process of local elected government. So I have advocated for moving our elections to November. I will continue to do so in the hopes that we will. And it can happen in a nonpartisan way. We can still respect the local government process, keep our local elections nonpartisan, but move them into November. So people, we know, for instance, in other cities like Austin, when they moved their local elections from May to November, saw year over year a fourfold increase, one election to the next, a fourfold increase in participation. Participation is an extremely vital part of good governance, and I'd like to see that happen in San Antonio.
Chairman. One question. I'm glad to see that Ron and Ivy, my good friends here, now support San Antonio to Austin Rail, because before this election, it wasn't necessarily the case. We have our MPO here locally in San Antonio, and they have one over there in Austin too. A few years back, both contributed $20 million to get this project started. The difference was in San Antonio that said, we're not going to use any of our money to the design phase. Therefore, Austin MPO had to spend the money on the environmental studies and everything, getting ready to do it. Bottom line is, they came to a point, the people in Austin, that they didn't believe San Antonio was ready to do this. And they pretty much tell them, are you in, are you out? And that's when the mayor and the council member said, use the convenient excuse that UP is not going to let us use their rails. But the truth be told, there's 7 different paths that we were looking at. Frankly speaking, I prefer the path that goes straight through I-35. So San Antonio and its council has traditionally not been supportive, but I'm really glad that it's election season and they're with me on this.
You're talking specifically about the Lone Star Rail project, are you not? Chairman, are you talking about the Lone Star Rail project?
Right.
Okay.
Well, Steve, I have to step in and correct that. Everything the chairman just said, respectfully, is totally inaccurate. I mean, the city of San Antonio provided funding for Lone Star Rail to support that organization for many years, and we have been committed to this idea of rail to Austin only once when the Lone Star situation kind of unraveled and it became clear that that was not going to be the path forward, we have pursued additional options. So it's totally inaccurate to say that we have just gotten on board during election season. This is something that we have endorsed through our budget every single year for probably the last 10 years.
She's correct. They've helped fund some of the operating costs, but they have not allowed the use of the $20 million to move this project forward.
Well, hold on.
Councilman.
That's simply not the case. I've enjoyed sitting on the MPO, even 4 years ago when Mayor Castro originally pointed me to it. The situation with the funding at both ends of Lone Star Rail was Austin agreed to the planning process, San Antonio agreed to construction. That's the way that funds are used. But everyone along this corridor wants to see this regional rail happen. The trouble is, we need leadership to make it happen. We have been working on Lone Star Rail through the Lone Star Rail District for about 22 years. And how many inches of rail have been laid? 0. We need to make sure that we're working with our state government through the Capitol, through the governor's office, to make Texas rail in the regional Central Texas corridor a priority for economic purposes, and that's how we'll make it happen.
But wasn't the idea that we'd use existing rails? I mean, it'd use existing rail for UP between San Antonio and Austin?
So Austin to San Antonio has a Union Pacific rail line that is used for freight and for passenger rail. The beauty of the original Lone Star Rail proposal was that we could build a freight bypass around the city of San Antonio, which would have huge impact for this region by getting freight out of the city of San Antonio, which has benefit for removing hazardous waste cargo from the middle of our city, We want to do that. We also know that if we remove the freight rail from the middle of San Antonio, we get rid of those 200 plus at-grade crossings to help with traffic flow. So getting freight outside of San Antonio needs to be a priority for the city, for this region, for trade purposes and for traffic purposes. Then we're talking about a commuter rail, which potentially could use that Union Pacific line. That now is off the Union Pacific existing rail line. That is now off the table. But we need to consider both of those issues, the freight trade that is moving through the center of our city, and also the need for commuter rail between here and Austin.
I mean, the bottom line is, we walked away from the project using the excuse that Union Pacific was not going to allow us their rail. There were other options, but we walked away. But bottom line is, we're all for it. I hope we can get them on board with San Antonio and Monterrey next.
But wait 1 second, Stephen, then we can move on. I
Sure.
just don't want anyone listening to be confused by that, because it's simply not true. We did not walk away from Lone Star Rail. This whole region is committed to making a rail project between Austin and San Antonio happen. That is the truth. And the fact that the chairman thinks that all of a sudden we have walked away from the idea until he said it is totally disingenuous.
Well, then let's talk about our plans.
Well,
Make it happen.
Mayor Taylor, would you like to add something to this discussion?
No, I would like to just underscore that, yes, we want to make rail happen, and it's been a long, ongoing conversation. It's not a new issue.
All right, I want to talk airport now.
Okay, well, before you do that, I mean, let's talk about the plan about building this, because I think this is a very important issue.
I
mean,
agree
San
with you, it's a
Antonio
very
to
important
Austin is the fastest growing corridor in the country. So let's talk about specifics and how we're going to do it. One, we're going to have a mayor elected on May 6th that's going to be in it to build it. We're not going to walk away from anything. Two, we're going to fund the last part of the environmental studies required to make this a reality. Three, we're going to set specific timelines and budgets within 1 year to get this thing started. And four, we're going to finance this mainly with money from the federal government, state government, and there will be a private investment in this as well. And five, once this gets rolling, we're going to finance the operation and maintenance of the project by the transportation economies built around the stations, and plus the tolls that people pay to ride.
That sounds like it would need a bond to happen.
No? No.
You don't think? Okay. Mayor Taylor, how do you answer that plan?
It all sounds very nice, but it'd be interesting to see how the chairman would be able to execute all that, given his lack of experience or knowledge with any of the organizations and entities that have been working on rail for years.
Councilman?
I mean, it's rhetoric versus a plan. I think there is a plan to execute regional rail and transportation. We were working on the environmental, we were working through the MPOs. We have to assemble the state leadership, and federal funds are going to be involved to make this happen. But we all believe it's a priority. We need to work to make it happen.
A lot of people on Facebook and Twitter and the live stream have been asking about how do we keep the economy healthy and growing in San Antonio. And one of those questions had to do with the airport, Mayor Taylor. Can San Antonio grow and prosper with the airport in its current site and at its current size?
That's a question that we are currently asking ourselves as we look towards a future growth. Because we cannot simply focus on what's happening in San Antonio today in order to ensure that all of our children have the opportunity to live in a community that is thriving and does grow jobs. We need to be asking those important questions. And so actually I was just talking with Judge Wolf yesterday. We're putting together a task force of folks to help ask these questions about whether or not, based on the population projections we have, if our airport in its current site would be able to accommodate the growth that we are looking forward to in the future, even as we continue to make improvements in what we have right now. There are some big projects going on out at the airport right now, but we're trying to determine whether we can grow at the site that we currently have, whether another location for a San Antonio airport would make sense, or whether it makes sense to partner with another community for a large regional airport.
Like Austin?
That's the community that frequently comes up in those discussions.
All right. Councilman?
So Austin, San Antonio has been said to be the next DFW area. It's a major metropolis. Certainly, I believe strongly in planning for the next era of air travel in San Antonio, but let's not make a mistake. I believe that the San Antonio airport has been a receptacle of all the excuses that we make for the city. The reason why San Antonio can't seem to hold on to direct flights is because we don't have a market for them. We need to continue to build jobs by creating educational outcomes that supply the workers of the future so that when businesses move here, they can see the labor and see the opportunity in San Antonio. And once we have a market built for direct flights, we will see those direct flights coming to San Antonio. The truth of the matter is, in San Antonio today, we are challenged with that, and we need to make sure that we're focusing on the right things. Our airport is a strategic competitive advantage for any flyer who gets to travel to and from San Antonio. There's not many major cities in the top 10 in the United States where you can say you fly right into the center of the city. And it's not the lack of runway space or lack of terminals that are keeping those direct flights, it's the market. I've talked to aviation experts, and they tell me in commercial aviation we can take off and land 98% of the aircraft that are out there. Let's focus on the right things, and we will see air travel in San Antonio continue to grow.
Chairman Medina.
Thank you. I mean, a regional airport is as bad idea as building a stadium downtown. The bottom line is the airport is the size it is not going to grow, but today we're not using it to its full capacity. We have the runway size, and we could even build a third terminal. What we need is to expand our local businesses, recruit new businesses, so we start using the airport a lot more. We also need to subsidize some flights to build the ridership. That's how Austin did it. They subsidized certain locations, and then after some time, well, there was enough ridership that they got rid of the subsidies. We need to do that too. And it's very important. I mean, look at what happened last year with Southwest Airlines. One, ridership went down by 21% from Mexico. Therefore, they had to eliminate a flight. And, well, no one on council seemed to have noticed. So it also needs to be a priority. I mean, right now, what I see is that they talk about baseball stadiums. They talk about Vista Ridge. They talk about things that are for tomorrow. But today, we need to talk about what we do with the airport, and that means subsidizing flights. That means building out our local businesses, bringing in new businesses to increase ridership. And at the end of the day, the airport right now is good enough. We just need to bring jobs to San Antonio.
All right, thank you. All right, I want to give the candidates a chance to get a drink of water here. We're going to take some questions from some of the partnering entities that we have. And I know there are designated people who are going to come up and ask some questions here. First, from the Bexar County Medical Society, introduce yourself.
I'm Dr. Leah Jacobson, and I'm this year's president of the Bexar County Medical Society. We represent almost 5,000 physicians in this community. And our question for you is, despite affecting everyone in this community, community health and wellness has not been a priority at City Hall. In fact, community health and wellness had 1/3 the ranking that streets received in community input via Speak Up San Antonio. Yet it impacts our well-being, workforce, economic development, and prosperity of San Antonio. If elected mayor, how would you elevate the discussion of health issues at City Hall and lead effective discussion and action to improve health and health care in our community?
I believe that question goes first to Councilman Nuremberg.
Great, and thank you, Leah, to you and to BCMS for the work that you do in the medical community and for public health. I think it's an extremely important issue and question that we discuss, and I think just like the shortcomings we've seen in investments over the years in San Antonio's infrastructure, we need to look at community health as the Bexar County Health Collaborative has through a lens of equity. Community health outcomes are directly affected by the social and infrastructure built environment that we have around San Antonio. We have worked actively to reduce teen pregnancy recidivism. We have worked actively to reduce rates of obesity, especially in child obesity. We also need to face the fact that San Antonio today has some of the highest rates of STDs and new cases of HIV in the state of Texas. These are real challenges. We also know we have challenges with mental health and substance abuse. As far as, in fact, I was alarmed just the other day to talk to someone who works at Southwest General Hospital about the number of opioid cases that are coming through newborns that they admit on a fairly regular basis. So to say that community health or health care and access to health care are not core issues for the city of San Antonio, I think would be short-sighted. So what do? I think that the next mayor and certainly the next city council need to prioritize how we improve those health outcomes by the way we do investments in our infrastructure, and also the way we formulate our investment strategies through agencies, through organizations that tackle these very issues. I think, just like I have been privileged to do so, the mayor needs to take an active role on the collaborative. I have been privileged to work with some of the folks in the medical community through the Diabetes Health Collaborative here in Bexar County. And we need to not shy away from the difficult conversations that challenge us and challenge the status quo. We know, for instance, one of the ways that we can best tackle rates of childhood obesity and childhood diabetes is simply talk to our community about healthy living, about sugary sodas. And that's not, we don't even have to talk about taxes or anything like that. We just need to make sure that we're taking a leadership position and having an educational community and educational exchange with our citizens about healthy living and healthy food choices for their children.
Chairman Medina.
Thank you. As mayor, I plan to work a lot closer than this council has with Metropolitan Health District, specifically on community health, environmental health, and, well, communicable diseases. Starting with environmental health, air pollution. Fortunately, we now have a database on companies that pollute the air. But some people are not in that database, and we need to enforce some of the ordinances that we passed lately that we're going to find companies that pollute our air. We also need to work with our local food establishments, something as simple as that. We read how a couple of restaurants here in town had a number of issues. So I support, and I'm going to work closely with the grading system that the health district has employed when it comes to environmental health. When it comes to community health, you know, we have chronic disease here in the city of San Antonio. 90% of the people here have too much salt in their diet. We need to communicate how bad that is. We need to educate people on the issue of diabetes. We need to work a little bit closer with kids in oral health. We certainly need to do health initiatives at schools, and we need to talk about prenatal care. How many of our kids, too many of our kids are being born with low weight and too soon. So we need to do something about community health, and certainly, like the council member said, when it comes to communicable diseases, STD and HIV, there's a few issues that we need to work with, and you'll have a mayor that does so.
Mayor Taylor.
While I'm sure there is room for improvement, I would differ with the assessment that it's not been a priority for us at City Hall. It certainly has been a priority for me. I've talked quite a bit about SA Tomorrow. It's actually 3 plans in one, and contained within our sustainability plan there are many goals that we've outlined for our community in relation to health. And just within the last couple of weeks, I was meeting with some folks from the Food Policy Council related to the goals that we have contained in that sustainability plan related to access to healthy foods. So that's something that, where we have been making progress. In addition, I have a Mayor's Fitness Council, a group of very engaged community volunteers that have been putting on events throughout the community, trying to get people active so that they can be healthy. Certainly there's room for improvement for me personally, but I do lead a walk with the mayor once a month. In fact, we just had it last week in Bonnie Connor Park in order to try and engage people in getting out in the most simple and cheap way possible and being active, which is walking. And we have also put a lot of money into our parks so that our citizens can have a safe, wonderful place for recreation and outdoor exercise. In fact, today we just passed a plan related to a master plan for Brackenridge Park, so we're continuing the momentum related to parks, but I certainly would love the opportunity to sit down with you and some of your colleagues and hear where you think we can make those improvements.
Next question.
My name is Janae Gonzalez, and I'm a member of the San Antonio Hispanic Chamber of Commerce Board. And my question is, the $850 million 2017 bond program is divided into 6 propositions: streets, bridges, sidewalks, drainage, flood control, parks, recreation, open spaces, facility improvements, housing, and neighborhood improvements. Will you vote in favor of all 6 bond propositions when you cast your vote in this election? And how will your leadership impact the implementation of the largest bond program in San Antonio's history?
Chairman Medina, I believe you're up first on this one.
My answer is no, and let me tell you why. Traditionally, we have bonds of $550 million, $650 million. Now we're at $850 million. And I believe there's some real needs in that $850 million. I calculate them at $550. The other $300 million we're giving away. We're giving away to the special interests here in town. When the mayor says that all $850 million has to do with needs, then we have a seriously differing definition of what need is. I don't believe that we need $50 million to beautify Broadway and the entrance to Alamo Heights. I don't believe we need $25 million to give away to Zachary Corporation so they could build a hotel at Hemisphere Park. I don't believe that we need $15 million to build a bridge at Phil Harberger Park, and I certainly don't believe in giving away $10 million to UTSA. $10 million for them to build a gym. UTSA is part of the UT system, who have the biggest endowment in the whole world almost. Why do we need to give them $10 million? So we've just outlined $100 million that we're giving away because they're friends of the city. Well, I think there's about $200 to $300 million that we're giving away. I have an issue with that, so I'm going to vote no. Then I'm going to cut the fat and then put the rest to a vote in November and then vote yes. Because we have real needs when it comes to streets and sidewalks, drainage and flood control, parks and maintenance. We have real needs. I'm with you on that. But there's a number of issues with this bond. The role of the special interest is also one of them. When we allocated $100 million of this park money to parks, 30 individuals were appointed to that committee. The council member appointed 3. All 3 were board members of the Phil Harberger Park. Were they there to take a look at all the needs of all the parks, or were they there to get their $15 million? I think you can answer the question better than I can.
Can I answer that question?
Sure.
They were there to speak for all parks. In fact, all 3 of those members have broad experience in all parks in San Antonio. We had at least 30, probably 35 members in each bond committee. They were charged for making recommendations, as was every citizen committee for all 6 propositions. So the notion that 3 citizens or 35 citizens didn't get it right flies in the face of a citizen-directed oversight process. And I reject the notion that getting people who are experienced in parks is a bad thing for recommending which parks need to be invested in.
And then the council member appointed Albert Carizales, the intergovernmental relations person at UTSA. Was he there to get $10 million for his gym, or was he there to look at all the facilities in town?
And just as I said before, he was there to speak and to recommend for all of the facilities. Every single one of those members got a chance to vet and to approve and to recommend those facilities to the full city council. And I will have to pass along your compliments to Albert that he seems to have convinced one person, convinced all 35 of those members to make that recommendation. I think that speaks not to Albert so much as it is to the value that San Antonio places in its flagship university, UTSA.
I actually think Albert's in the audience, so he probably knows. Mayor Taylor, how do you answer the questions about the bond and some of the charges that the chairman have made?
Well, in answer to your first question, yes, I will be voting yes on all 6 of the propositions, and I'm very grateful to the 160 community members who volunteered hours and hours of their time to vet all these proposals, and I respect the decisions that they came back with. Yeah, there are some projects that I wouldn't have necessarily put on the list, but they felt that they were all worthy of consideration by the voters, and I believe that there is enough good in the entire bond that will touch every single part of San Antonio that we should all get out and support it. This is a very significant opportunity for us as a community to make investments into ourselves so that we can support the growth that we are experiencing, and so that we can improve the quality of life of people who are living in San Antonio right now. That's what the bond allows us to do in a very significant way. And that is why I will be supporting it. And as far as providing leadership to impact execution, we'll work very closely with the city staff to ensure that we maintain our record of providing these projects on time and on budget.
And while I'll get you in a second, I'm going to let Councilman Nirenberg answer the original question.
Yes, I would. I definitely support it because for a number of reasons. First of all, the robust citizen process that led to a menu of projects that I think we can all be proud of and that touch all corners of our city. We also can recognize the fact that the bond process started with the SA Tomorrow planning process, which I was proud to chair, which recognizes that not only does every citizen in all corners of our city deserve a great city, but that we have historically had areas of underinvestment. And so this bond not only pushes us forward to a great city, but it also helps to turn the page and helps us to reinvest in communities, in infrastructure that has been disinvested in for so long. So I plan to actively support it. In addition, on oversight, we will provide citizen-directed oversight so that community members who are involved in the planning process and who are interested in making sure that the projects are delivered on time and on budget, and make sure that that happened over the next 5 years. I was proud to have done that with the largest bond project or largest roadway project in the city's history in Hausman, which we just completed in November. So we will definitely be confident that citizens will continue to have their voices represented in the bond.
Chairman?
Yes, I mean, the price tag is an issue. $850 million. The mayor says that she's not increasing your taxes, but guess what? Half of your property tax bill today goes to pay for public debt. And we're about to assume $850 million more. We're in effect maxing out our city's credit card. The mayor will disagree, but I will disagree with her. Because based on the financial structure today and the tax revenue projected, that's all we can borrow. It's irresponsible to max out the city's credit card. It's like you getting a $3,000 credit card in the mail and then going to JCPenney right away and buying yourself $3,000 worth of clothes. Well, you might have a lot of needs, but is that fiscally irresponsible? Same thing here with the city. We have a lot of needs, but is it fiscally responsible to max out our city's credit card? I think not. The mayor just said there's a number of projects that are not worthy of her support. I would like her to tell us which ones those are.
Well, I'm not going to go there, but I do want to know, answer the question about specifically the bond and some of the charges that he made.
Well,
and if you want to answer his question about, what specifically?
No, I would like to address, because this is very important for our community, so I would like to address the misstatements that have just been made by the chairman. And I will say that I will attribute it to his lack of experience or knowledge regarding city government and financing these large capital projects. His characterization is simply inaccurate. This is not like a JCPenney credit card. Okay, we at the city of San Antonio, first off, if you want to talk about credit, we have very good credit, which means that we will be able to borrow at the lowest interest rates possible, which means that we can spend more dollars actually on projects, on streets, on drainage, on flood control, on parks. So that actually is not correct. And also the state provides limits on what municipalities can borrow, and we are so far below. I can't remember the number off the top of my head, but we are so far below what those limits are that it just absolutely makes those charges that he's leveling ridiculous. And there is no property tax rate increase associated. We have to manage, we have to be able to make these investments in our community. Otherwise, we will fall behind. We'll have a diminished quality of life. We'll have less safe streets. We'll have homes that are flooded. And so I really implore people to seek out the real facts on the bond, because this is an investment that we need to make in our community.
And yes, we could borrow more, but we would have to increase taxes.
Okay. Councilman, do you want to add anything to the JCPenney credit card?
I don't have a JCPenney
Okay.
credit
All right,
card.
good. We just have some people. We have some more
Neither does the
questions.
city.
We have some more questions we want to get to. So.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, back to healthcare. Of note, the individual physicians of Bexar County provide up to 25% of indigent health care in our community. We understand that Bexar County is a primary funder of indigent health in our area through the Bexar County Hospital District and University Health System. How would you, as mayor, promote cooperative efforts to increase services and access to care for the citizens of San Antonio?
To me?
Mayor.
Okay. Well, we already are promoting cooperative efforts with Bexar County, and I'll just refer to my experience working on the east side, where we've been very focused on improving health outcomes and revitalizing a neighborhood that has suffered from a lack of investment and all the associated negative impacts. And so through that partnership, we were able to work with Bexar County to actually build a clinic in an underserved area. So I think through continuing to have communication with the county level officials and partnering where we can on other smaller scale programs, we certainly can make an impact. Another great example over there on the east side as well is the Manger Creek redevelopment, which Manger Creek was originally a bond project from 2012 where we were just going to redo a drainage ditch. But through a partnership with the county, they put in more money, and then we were able to turn that into a linear park, which is going to provide an outstanding opportunity for outdoor recreation in a part of San Antonio on the east side where people probably never would have imagined being able to have that amenity.
Councilman?
I believe probably when it's all said and done, one of my proudest achievements will be to have been to navigate the politics of City Hall and bring the Greenway trails back to the voters for reapproval. We did that in 2015, so we are actively building green space and building green space infrastructure around town so that our chief way of contributing to the health of our community is through our built environment. But I do believe that there is an important role for collaboration with Bexar County and the health district in improving health outcomes. So I believe very strongly, as I said before, that we need to take an active role in the Bexar County Health Collaborative. That includes ensuring that we have active and on-time needs assessments, that we are actively working on the improvement plan for the Bexar County Health Collaborative area, as well as ensuring that the impacts that we see after that plan is implemented are on the mark with our need for improved community health outcomes.
Chairman.
We're certainly at a very critical point when it comes to health care and indigent care. We know at the federal level that they're talking about Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and whether there'll be a replacement for it. We're going to be in a very dire situation if they get rid of the act and do not replace it with something. That will create a serious financial strain on our local hospitals. That is unimaginable. On top of that, we need to make sure that whatever it's replaced with addresses the issue of indigent care. Because every day, your hospitals are working on low profit margins, but you have to take care of people. And that's what you do, and at the end of the day, we can't have you losing money. Otherwise, we won't have hospitals for anybody.
All right, Brianna has been waiting very patiently here. She has the last question, and then we will have closing arguments. Yeah, closing arguments. We'll have closing statements. Councilman Nirenberg, this question is for you.
Thank you to each of you for being with us tonight. This question is from the Hispanic Chamber. Mexico is the largest export trade partner for Texas. Trade supports thousands of jobs in San Antonio and provides more goods at better prices for Texas families. What is your stance on the potential renegotiation of the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, and under your leadership as mayor, how would you impact this national conversation that was born right here in San Antonio?
Yeah, well, that's an important question. Hopefully I reflected some of this in my statements about the importance of the international arena to San Antonio. It is definitely concerning, the rhetoric coming from D.C., particularly the White House, on reorganization or the changing of NAFTA, potentially the eliminating NAFTA. Our trade agreements with our partners, particularly south of the border, are keeping families and businesses thriving in San Antonio. So we need to make sure that the mayor of San Antonio is working actively with our chamber community, particularly the Hispanic Chamber, particularly the U.S. Hispanic Chamber as well, in ensuring that their voice is being heard loud and clear in Washington. And I have to express similar concern about partnerships in other arenas as well, trade partnerships like the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which are having additional impacts on businesses or threaten to do so. We need to make sure that San Antonio and America are open for business, and we do that through modern trade agreements. So without knowing the details of what the president has in mind, we need to make sure that our chamber communities and that our businesses and families here in San Antonio have a voice at the table.
Chairman?
Thank you. And this is a very serious issue. And at a previous debate, the mayor shared with us how she had met with the mayors of big cities in Austin, Dallas, and San Antonio. And my response was this: I wish she would have joined them in their opposition to this discussion on NAFTA, this discussion of a wall, this discussion of 20% tax on imports from Mexico. Because there still has yet to be a public statement from this mayor on these issues. When it comes to NAFTA, then we are already feeling the negative effects. Because investors do not know what's going to happen, they're keeping their money in their pocket. They're waiting to see, and it's already affecting the city of San Antonio. This issue of a 20% tax on import goods from Mexico is just going to start a trade war, and the mayor has said nothing. We're going to lose jobs on the other side of the border, and we're going to lose jobs on this side of the border. It's a very serious issue, and we need leadership from the city. Manuel Medina has already gone to Mexico to talk with people that are investing or are looking to invest in the United States, here in San Antonio specifically. We've already talked about how, once I'm elected, I'm going to take a 7-day, 14-city tour throughout Mexico to ensure them that we're open for business in the city of San Antonio.
Mayor?
Of course, ensuring that we continue to have those strong trade relationships with Mexico is critical for our community. And in relation to any proposed changes to NAFTA, I have been and will continue to work closely with our congressional delegation to communicate what our needs are in San Antonio, what the impact of NAFTA has been on our community, and I'll also continue working with chambers of commerce and other business leaders in order to convey those concerns so that if there is any change in legislation, that it would not negatively impact us.
Thank you. Thank you, Brianna, for the question. Thank you for joining us. We're going to do the closing statements, and just like at the beginning, Bexar County Democratic Chairman Manuel Medina will open with the closing statements.
Thank you. Excuse me. San Antonio is the 7th largest city in America. We're the capital of South Texas, and I love our city. But we're also experiencing skyrocketing crime. We're the most economically segregated city in America, and we have income inequality gaps that are historic levels. We need a new mayor. As your mayor, I will be independent, politically and financially. I will be accountable to you, the taxpayer, not the city manager, not the special interest, not the paid lobbyist, but to you, the taxpayer. As your mayor, I will focus on today. We talked about, and you've heard, how they're so focused on tomorrow. We need to address generational poverty today, institutional violence today, nightmare traffic today, the lack of basic infrastructure on the south side today, Manuel Medina will be a mayor that focuses on today. Manuel Medina will also be a voice for fiscal responsibility. We have a tax rate that the mayor says she hasn't changed, but we've seen our skyrocketing appraisal districts. I will work with Democrats and Republicans at the state legislature to rein in the Bexar County appraisal district. I will question every single SAWS and CPS rate increase because I believe we already have too many six-figure salaries at City Hall. And Manuel Medina will work with Democrats and Republicans from across town as we come together to challenge the status quo at City Hall. Together is how we're going to do things. That's why, when have you seen the Tea Party and the Democratic Party endorse one candidate for mayor? When have you seen the coalition of liberals and conservatives come together to support one candidate for mayor? That's because together we represent independent leadership. Together we represent transparent leadership. Together we represent an era of local government that's accountable to you, the people, the taxpayers of the city of San Antonio. Tonight I ask for your vote. I'm ready to get to work. I'm going to roll up my sleeves and get things done today. I respectfully ask for your support. My name is Manuel Medina. With the Lord's blessing and your support, I will be the new mayor for San Antonio.
Mayor Ivy Taylor.
Well, I thank everyone again for your time and attention. I'd like to reiterate my vision that we make San Antonio a city where every single person has the opportunity to get ahead, no matter where they live in our community or where their background is. I believe that I've demonstrated through tackling the tough issues that I can provide the leadership that's needed in order for us to bring that vision to reality. We've tackled issues like bringing rideshare back to San Antonio, focusing on our water security. We have Vista Ridge as well as a desalination project coming up. Again, getting that police contract right, working with HUD and our local housing partners to get every homeless veteran off the street. Those are all the issues that I've been working on, and the kind of leadership that I provide is what will be needed in order for us to continue tackling those tough issues like dealing with growth and developing more transportation options for our community. At the end of the day, while I've certainly enjoyed this lively debate, it's not about rhetoric. It is about leadership and being able to get things done. And I ask that you all would look at the record of what we've been able to accomplish with my leadership and in partnership with many of you in the community to benefit our community and to advance that common vision that we have, that every single person would be able to succeed and achieve in our community. So I respectfully ask for your vote and your support so that we can continue this wonderful journey and we can continue to see our city grow and evolve and know that every single one of our children will be able to live here and prosper and explore whatever their dreams are that they hold in their hearts. Thank you.
Councilman Ron Nirenberg.
Well, thank you so much for having me tonight. And I do hope that you've learned a little bit tonight about who we are, about what we stand for, and I do hope you take time to look at our records. Certainly there are disagreements and there are distinctions between the candidates you see on the stage, but more than that, I do believe that everyone here wants San Antonio to be a great place, but it takes leadership to get there. I believe we deserve a city that has a strong transportation system that you can have confidence in, that you have city leaders that are living up to the highest ethical standards that you would have to with your own business or your own family, that you have a city that is creating jobs where you know your children will go to school here and want to stay here because they'll find a career here. I have been blessed and privileged to be a city council member who's came from the ranks of just another neighbor to make and to focus on the issues that really matter, on water security issues. I'm doggedly determined to ask questions to represent you. It's tough work, but it's important work that we make sure we leave San Antonio a better place for our children. And I am inspired every day by one young man who's here. He's reading his book, but it will be the tale of our lives when I get to tell Jonah what we've done and how we've improved the city that I hope he will choose to live in for the rest of his life. I do have to tell you that he gives me the most important assessment, other than you, to elect me your next mayor. He gives me the most important assessment I will ever get as a public servant, and that is when I get home at night, he asks me if I've made the world better. And I believe I can confidently say yes. And with that spirit, we look forward to the work for you, for the city of San Antonio, to make it a place that you will be proud of, no matter who you are, no matter where you live, no matter where you came from, and no matter what you want to do with your life. We hope you find a place and a home in San Antonio, and I respectfully ask for your vote to be mayor of San Antonio. Thank you very much.
I want to thank the candidates for being part of this. I want to thank the audience as well, and those of you who are watching on the live stream at home. Engage, get out, and vote. I also want to recognize the people behind the scenes from the Hispanic Chamber, from the Tobin Center, from KSAT 12. Thank you for making this all possible, and be sure to vote on Election Day. Thank you all for being here.